One of Hong Kong's most prestigious universities has become the latest battlefield in the violence that's been plaguing Hong Kong for nearly 5 months. Rioters, many of them students, set fire across the campus of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, or CUHK, on Tuesday night in a chaotic standoff with police, where they hurled petrol bombs and bricks at law enforcement officers. For fear of being targeted, some mainland students have been evacuated to the mainland. Meanwhile, several universities have cancelled the rest of the term for the safety of students and colleagues. Why has violence taken hold of university campuses in the region? What factors have enabled such violence? And has the situation already spiraled out of control? I've got Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics here in Beijing, and from Hong Kong, Lawrence Ma, barrister and chairman from Hong Kong Legal Exchange Foundation. So before you go to the discussion, I would like to show you an excerpt of the press conference held by the police earlier today.
What happened in Chinese University of Hong Kong means bad omen for Hong Kong. A university is supposed to be a breeding ground for future leaders, but it became a battlefield for criminals and rioters. What's worse, we have strong suspicion that the school was used as a weapon factory, as several hundred of petrol bombs were thrown on campus in one single day.
So that was a spokesperson of the Hong Kong police speaking at a regular presser earlier today. So warm welcome to my two guests there. And indeed, you know, day in, day out, we've been talking about this topic. Sometimes you become a little bit indifferent to the degree of how things have developed, how severe the situation is. And at the end of the day, if you think about it, university campuses become a battleground where hundreds of petrol bombs are thrown and potentially hurting people, killing people. Professor Liu, exactly how did we get here? I mean, what has propelled the situation to this appalling degree?
Well, the protest is largely participated by students, and it is understandable that they are sensitive, and some, in many cases, they can really be innocent, or they can easily turn to be even victims of certain conspiracy. So it is understandable for them, their, say, aggressive action. But in the meantime, you know, to take the campus as a shelter for aggressive behavior or even crime is totally wrong, because you know, people have sympathy and people have extra protection over campus sovereignty in terms of academics, in terms of freedom of speech and opinion, but not really using campus as a place to cook up the weapons or to crime and to find shelter and hide from crime. So this is really totally wrong, and this is the situation over there is gone too far.
Mr. Ma in Hong Kong, what has enabled university campuses to be turned into such weapons factory where hundreds of petrol bombs were being produced and being used, and the students, as Professor Liu said here, were able to find some kind of shelter every time after they went out, vandalized, you know, committed violence against citizens or you know, against machines or public facilities in the city. They are able to go back to the school almost finding some kind of consolation, and before they go out again to repeat the same thing before things really deteriorate. Mr. Ma.
Yes, people have a delusion that university grounds are private premises, because it was only if you go into university, they have to some of them they have to check your ID and then to grant admission sometimes. So there was a doubt as to whether the university ground is a private premises. Now, under the Public Order Ordinance, Section 33, if someone who is in possession of offensive weapon in a public place, then that person can be arrested in a public place. Now, university ground is, the question is whether university ground is a public place. Now, public place is actually defined in that section to mean the common area of any private premises. The common area of any private premises is a public place. For example, university grounds. If they are not the lecture theaters themselves, but roads, places that public can access, driveways, they are all public places within a private premises. So if police would be able to enter university by virtue of this provision, because it is now being used, university has been used as a weapon repository and a place of and a factory, according to what the police has said. So police can actually go into university grounds and effect arrest, and this is the source of the power. And the second source of power is under the police force ordinance, which allows, if there is suspects in a premises, which is a public premise, then police can go in and arrest them. Now, Hong Kong constitutional law, which is the basic law, Article 29, I think, protects homes, private homes. So, for example, if the police wants to go into a private home, a private residence, to arrest somebody,
sure,
the police has to apply for a warrant. But there's also exception to this constitutional protection. If the suspect is to be go away, and there's a high risk that the suspect will go away or escape from that private premises, then there's no need for a warrant. So all in all, what we are trying to say is that there is no need for the police to obtain a warrant before going to the university ground to arrest the students who are making bombs.
And I think the whole discussion, excuse me if I'm a little bit simplistic, I think the whole discussion is rather absurd. I mean, if it is a public place where people can go in and go out, you know, if there obviously suspicion of something illegal going on, why is it even a debate whether police can go in and enforce law so that, you know, the students themselves can be protected? What I'm sensing, for instance, there seems to be even some kind of condoning, you know, or protection by the university authority, by the university leadership towards these students, protesters, rioters, whatever you call them, so that they have been emboldened, even enabled, to continue to go down the path towards greater violence. That is the impression that I'm getting. Professor Liu, what is your impression here?
Well, I agree with you, but there is no really flying in land for campuses, because if there's a reasonable suspect of any violation or imminent danger anywhere, including the campus, you know, there's a legitimate way to have access by government forces, particularly police. And on the other hand, the university managers or administrators, including the president, they do not really have the responsibility to identify who is there to violate the law, etc. But the permission to enter the campus is definitely possible. But we also take some of the social sentiment over there. One is that
yeah,
you know, students feel that, well, you know, I can really have a safer shelter, and in the meantime, psychologically, they feel that they are joining a crowd that is really difficult for police to identify. The other is that, okay, you know, campus should be left unbothered by some externalities, and then, you know, the people have a respect to academic independence and sovereignty, but these are really the fantasies students are really taking shelter with.
I have a problem because it is not just, the situation didn't just erupt overnight. There has been several incidences where the authority, the impartiality, or even, you know, the moral standard, let's say, of the leader of some university have been put in question. For instance, on October the 18th, the president of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Rocky S. Tuen, issued an open letter pointing out that the university contacted more than 30 arrested students one by one. Most of them said they had been treated unreasonably, and he asked the police to clarify the details and said he would help the arrested students. That letter actually angered a lot of people, because by saying that the students could have possibly been treated unreasonably by basically protecting these students who obviously violated the law, he actually encouraged more students to follow that path of committing violence, and he did not condemn in a very clear term that violence is absolute no-go. Breaking the law is absolute no-go. And there is this understanding that because when you don't do that, you're actually encouraging more violence. Professor Liu, what is your argument towards that?
Well, I've been working for the university for the past of my 30 years. I really feel sympathy of the situation, because teachers and university administrators, they all have a sense or passion as a parent, so to look after the students as their kids. So I think emotionally it is really understandable. But by offering the unfair protection, is also there not only to disrupt the law enforcement, but also to encourage the wrongful behavior of the students. So therefore, they have, emotional, the passion is one side, but on the other, particularly in such a crucial situation as what is going on in Hong Kong, I think, all university presidents, administrators, and even professors, they have to have a very clear standpoint.
Yeah.
Where is the law, and where is the border of my emotional compassion with my students.
Mr. Ma, as we are speaking, actually the student unions of 14 institutes of higher learnings in Hong Kong have issued a statement saying they will perish together, they will stand together with the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So are we going to see a situation further spiraling down?
Well, I think they have decided to apply for an injunction early, I think this afternoon, in the High Court of Hong Kong for an injunction restraining the police from entering university grounds. A High Court judge actually heard the application and refused to grant an injunction. What it means is that under the law in Hong Kong, police can now confirm that they have a strong legal right to enter universities and to effect arrest if necessary. So that is politically, I think this is what the law enforcement and the judiciary is saying no to violence. So once the injunction has been granted, once the injunction has been refused, there is no further excuse for the students to oppose any police presence in campus.
But do you think the students can control their behavior? Are things already gotten out of control? Mr. Ma, very briefly, please.
Well, they're grown-up adults. I mean, they have very biased political views against the central government, the Hong Kong government, and a lot of disgruntledness that they had. But taking on illegal actions, riots, burning shops, vandalizing places, injuring, hitting, and almost killing people, pouring of explosive substance onto people. These simply are acts of criminals. They're not students anymore. But I believe they can control their acts. They are grown-up adults. And if they are arrested and sent and trial in a court of law, they are not treated as adolescents or teenagers, because they are all over 18-year-old. They are fully grown adults.
All right. Hopefully that's the case, that they can come back to reason and control their behavior. Many thanks to Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, and Lawrence Ma, Barrister and Chairman from Hong Kong Legal Exchange Foundation.